So when a child sees an adult behave in a way that is big and is a little jarring, and then experiences the adult come back and soften and apologize and take ownership, they know they can build trust. Like, can you imagine that child knowing how to build trust and taking that into their adult world? Then not being vigilant around people, hyper vigilant, not being mistrusting, not pushing people away when conflict arises. This is massive, man. Massive.
Welcome to The King Within, a podcast for men who seem to have it all, yet feel like they're losing what matters most. I'm Mike Salemi and I've been there. Successful on paper but disconnected on the inside. This isn't about grinding harder. It's about mastering your emotions, leading with calm strength, and rebuilding trust at home. Each week we dive into real stories and tools for becoming the man your family runs towards, not away from. Because you didn't build this life to lose yourself in it. This is The King Within. Let's do the work. I just sat down with Stefanos Sifandos, author of the new book, Turned On and Turned In, and we spent the majority of this conversation on one thing: repair. How to repair with your partner, how to repair with your kids, and why most of us never learned how to do it because we never saw it modeled. Steph breaks down why relationships are the most powerful catalyst for growth, why healing almost always has to happen in a relational context, and what it actually looks like to take genuine ownership without falling into codependency or shame. All right, Steph, my brother, what's going on, man?
Excited to be here, man.
I'm excited you're here as well. Little bit of a backstory. I recently, I think maybe it was actually because you've seeded the release of your book, I believe, over the last few months in different ways. But as soon as I got caught wind of it, I was like, the name of the book, absolutely loved. I shared it with my wife. She's like, that is such a good name.
That's all Christine. Yeah. She came up with that.
Yeah, man. Well, we love the book. And as I was sharing before, the topic is just a massive area that I've got a lot of curiosity in. I'm currently deepening within myself how I show up in relationship. Even though I mainly support guys, relationships always come up in the conversation. And so, again, super excited to dive in and to spread the good word. And when I was feeling into where do I want to go today with you, because obviously there's so many angles to this, the area that I'd love to just get right in and unpack is, well, one, it's why are relationships so challenging for especially men, but like, why is it such fertile ground for conflict, for also self-growth, but why are relationships potentially so challenging for so many of us?
Yeah, relationships are so challenging for so many of us because we need them so deeply, and we're so scared to lose them or see the fullness of ourselves in those relationships. Relationships are mirrors. They're mirrors for what we can't see within ourselves. They're mirrors for what pain we've been harboring, what fear we've been avoiding, what, maybe quote unquote trauma we've been running from. And they're so important because they are probably the biggest catalyst for growth. And to me, growth is synonymous with love. It's synonymous with God to some degree. It's synonymous with the ever-expansive self, the mystery. And that is why we're here, to grow, right? And so relationships bring us face-to-face with growth. And while we all want growth, or most of us do and most of the time, it's generally pretty confronting. And so that's the juxtaposition, that's the paradox, right? The double-edged sword. So that's why relationships are so important. They bring us face to face with truth, and truth is really fucking scary.
Yes. Do you think, Steph, that this is something I was wondering, do you think that if someone's experienced some type of wound in a relationship, can that only be healed in future relationships? Or like, how much healing can someone do if they've experienced some deep challenge in prior relationships? How much healing can someone do on their own? And is there things that can only be healed in the presence of someone else?
There are a number of factors that impact and influence that exploration and that answer. The immediate answer is depends, right? And so most wounds or most pains that are caused or that are experienced are happening in the context of a relational setting. Therefore, the quote unquote healing or the wholeness process that takes place it's far more effective in a relational setting. So for example, if a child grows up with a very distant, absent father or an abusive, narcissistic mother, their experience of intimacy and their experience of closeness is jaded, or it's just very specific. It's a specific kind of context around intimacy. Most people can't be trusted. People are generally emotionally available. Maybe the perception or the idea or the belief is that people are selfish. They only care about themselves. I can't be myself. I'm going to be judged. I'm going to be criticized, etc. We then often need real examples, again, paradox, juxtaposition, the contrast of that to learn, because contrast is, we live in a world of duality and contrast so that we can learn in a very rich way. And so if we then have an experience of someone that meets us with compassion, that actually is available, that sticks around during conflict, that gets curious, not judgmental, that is compassionate, not angry, and we have that real life experience over and over again consistently, because initially we may push it away and reject it because it's not familiar and we don't trust it. But eventually, especially if we're deliberately, intentionally working on that, on ourselves, we'll let that in and we end up healing that wound, because the belief then comes in and says, oh, well, people can be trusted. Oh, not all men are emotionally unavailable. Oh, not all women are not nurturing and not caring and super self-absorbed, right? Like if that was the examples that I gave earlier, if that was your experience. Because then what happens is we take that experience of intensity, it registers and lands in our nervous systems and our psychology, and then we make it mean something. And then we generalize and label and we become hypervigilant. Or actually, we sort of become hypervigilant first and then we generalize. And so now we paint everyone with the same brush. So when we have a relational experience of the contrast of that, eventually, if we allow ourselves to, and if it's in our dharma, karma, life's path, we'll let that in and we'll have a reorientation around safety and relationship. And so again, like ipso facto, having healing in a relationship or in a relational context is often not only the fastest way, but the most beautiful and profound way as well. It can happen on your own, a little more challenging, very rarer circumstances, I would say. We're relational beings.
You know, hearing that, just reflecting on my own relationship, not just in my current marriage, but in past ones. And it's getting more and more clear to me. Like, obviously, I lead men's work. I also participate in a lot of it. And there's certain things that work great with men's work. And I'm continually reminded at the end of circle, it's like when I could feel like so empowered, had a great release, feeling in my body, sitting nice and tall, breathing deep. And then all of a sudden I come home, and maybe there is a difference for sure. I would say there is a difference compared to if I came into conflict without having gone to, being with guys and working on some of this stuff. But it's so humbling, and it has been so humbling for me. I'm like, God damn, this is just a different level, or requires a different type of tools or a different thing, to your point earlier, that I'm curious to ask, like, how many men in your experience have not only received from an early age quality modeling on how to navigate relationships, intimate relationships? My experience, most of us haven't, and I actually don't even know. I can't think of many people that I have met or anybody that has. Have
One
you?
or two in 100.
Fuck.
Honestly, man, like 1 or 2 in 100 that have received genuinely healthy modeling. Maybe.
Could you share what for you stands out? Like, what is healthy modeling? What does that entail to you, and like what comes up when you feel into that?
Yeah, if I was to bring it down into one word, I would say repair. Right? Like that healthy modeling is repair. So now I'm going to elaborate on that and go a little deeper into it, right?
Please.
Now, just before I do, I want to just say something else, share something else on the relational piece. I think you asked a very powerful question around, simple question, but very powerful, man, and profound, around do we have to heal in a relational context if that wound happens in that? Because most wounds really do, or experiences that are intense and registered as that intensity and that trauma, or, can we do it on our own? The thing is that there's so much more value in, it's easier doing it on your own because it's safer. Right. And the simple act of vulnerability actually is unsafe. Like if you really think about that, it's this tug of war, this push-pull relationship between safe and unsafe, right? But ultimately it's unsafe. You're risking a great deal. But it's in that risk that you know yourself in deeper ways. You feel yourself in deeper ways, maybe what has been unfelt. So through that relating, that choice to relate, where it's really confronting and scary, you're choosing to move from a disempowered state into an empowered state. That is the quote unquote healing of trauma at some level, at all the levels actually. It's feeling disempowered and disempowerment, and then experiencing empowerment and rewriting, reframing, retuning that entire experience really, really matters. What is healthy modeling? Repair. So what I mean by that, we are imperfect men. And I live this in my own life, and it's such a hassle, and it's so fucking difficult because I just put so much pressure on myself to be perfect or to be the best father or the best husband or the best human. And I'm not going to get it. And I'm not meant to. We're not meant to be perfect. We're meant to be human. That doesn't excuse poor behavior, right? And that doesn't mean that we can just keep behaving poorly and behaving unconsciously and hurting other people and hurting ourselves and consciously and unconsciously choosing to live from our wounds and our pain, right? And then just say sorry and all of a sudden we're repairing and it's all good. Now we're healing, now we're healthy. Not at all. So there's obviously nuance to this, a lot of gray in this. But what I mean by repair is I mean that as a human, whatever identity you hold, a man, a husband, a father, a leader, a business owner, whatever, like an athlete, whatever it is, whatever titles, whatever identities do you hold, that you're intentionally striving and choosing to embody a better version of yourself as often as possible, right? That's the sort of foundation. There's your come from. The come from is, hey, I'm fallible, I'm human, I'm going to mess up, I don't intend to, I'm going to keep coming back to truth, I'm going to keep coming back to integrity and honesty with myself as often as I can. And from that place, then you seek to understand the other and you seek to understand yourself. And in seek genuinely, this has got to be authentic. You're not doing it in a codependent way because if you do this, then they'll be okay. So then you'll have relief and you'll be okay. You're not doing it from that relational wound. You're doing it from a place of this is genuinely important to me. I will seek to understand the other person. If I behave in a malicious way, in a way that hurts someone else, I'm going to come face to face with my ego. I'm going to look at myself. I'm going to feel myself through that process. And I'm going to instigate repair with my own nervous system and that person's nervous system in the ways that we have agreed upon, or in the ways that, because agreements matter, communication matters, in the ways that are meaningful to that person and meaningful to me. I'm going to carry an intention of repair. I'm not going to let my ego and personality let me be in fear and control, and as a byproduct of that, continuously hurt myself and others and create emotional distance, because we all want to be needed, seen, heard, understood, accepted, respected, appreciated, especially men. Those last accepted, respected, appreciated. And so that's what I mean by repair. That's healthy modeling. So now translate that. I'll give you an example of my life. And this is really interesting what happened this morning, actually. So I have a practice, so does my wife, Christine, Christine. We have a practice that if we behave in a particular way that is hurtful, within our dynamic, with our family dynamic and our daughter as well, we have a nearly 4-year-old daughter. She's 4 in March, mid-March. We repair. So sometimes I may raise my voice, or I may be stern, or I may be a little too rigid with my daughter. As quickly as possible, I'll regulate my own nervous system. I will go to her and I will apologize and I will instigate repair. As much as my ego sometimes doesn't want to do it, but I will instigate repair. Now I will request forgiveness and I will check in with her, and we have a process for all of that. And of course I'm doing it for me, but I'm doing it for us and for her as well. And I will say to her, I'm sorry, I take complete ownership. We have a process, right? This morning, because my little girl she sleeps okay, but she could use some support in the sleeping department. She just wakes up early and just is full of, demanding. She's a very strong personality anyway. Like I'm in early, man. Like sometimes 4:30, 5 o'clock. Fuck,
I get it. Mine
Anyway,
too.
and I'm up late working, and anyway, so she was a little demanding this morning. She was just being, I don't want to say she's being mean because she's 4 years old. It's not, but she had attitude, right? And so like 2 hours later, she comes to me and she says, "Daddy, I'm sorry I was frustrated before." I said to her, "It's okay, baby. It's no problem. Thank you so much for saying sorry. Are you repairing?" She says, "Yeah, I'm repairing." I said, "Well, I'm sorry. I was a little tired and I didn't respond to you straight away." And like we just got into it. So she instigated that, right? And so you can see that repair is so important for so many reasons. And I can go a little deeper into this if you want me to. Yeah,
Absolutely.
let me
Yeah,
let me go a
this
little
is
deeper into
the I
the
think
yeah.
that the thing that of all, like, there's so much, but this is
Yeah.
the thing. This is the
Yeah,
this is
and
the thing.
and I wanted to distill, right? Because there are many characteristics, factors, practices that impact healthy modeling. But we can focus on all of them. It's okay, but we also only have much time. But I think repair is big, man, because when a child experiences the softening of an adult's ego and the movement, again, this is a lot of unconscious reading that's taking place here, unconscious observation of one's environment through their nervous system, right? And then imprinting on their brain and their perception of reality and their value set and their worldviews and their understanding of relationships and healthy intimacy and closeness and connection and all that stuff. We're very primal beings fundamentally, man. That yes, we have a prefrontal cortex that's quite advanced, as advanced as we've ever known, apparently, right? Like consciousness expanded, and our brain still orients towards what's the most dangerous thing that I need to avoid. That's it. Like, so when a child during their formative years, learning their way through the world, understanding the value and the importance and the safety of relationships in their world, sees feels an adult do something that's also the association is that's their primary caregiver. I can't live without that person. Because remember,
Mhm.
strength in numbers, like you go back millions of years ago as hominoids moving through the world, even hundreds of thousands of years ago, from what we understand, like strength in numbers. Environment was a volatile place. You need each other. And if you fall out of goodwill with each other, that means certain death.
Mm.
Brain doesn't want that. Nervous system doesn't want that. That's very scary. So when a child sees an adult behave in a way that is big and is a little jarring, and then experiences the adult come back and soften and apologize and take ownership, they know they can build trust. Now, can you imagine that child knowing how to build trust and taking that into their adult world? Then not being vigilant around people, hyper vigilant, not being mistrusting, not pushing people away when conflict arises. This is massive, man, massive. And so this is why repair is so important, especially if it's sincere and it's genuine. Because now you've got two people growing through that process. And the intention is to not keep making those choices over and over again. You have how many mistakes do you have until you get it quote unquote right, So yeah, it's a mistake, but it's more of like a mistake, right? It's like I'll keep having these mistakes, but my intention is to have less of them. And in that humility, your child witnesses that. And so they hide less. There's a process when repair is open in a family dynamic, in a relationship during those formative years. That child hides less now. They wear less masks. They be more of themselves. They're closer to their truth. Not to get biblical and Christian here, Jesus said, and you look at many other religious faiths and spiritualities cross-culturally over multiple time horizons, there are central truths to all of that. One of them is the truth shall set you free.
Mm.
If you're wearing less masks and you're hiding less, by default, you're closer to your truth. You're closer to truth, to being in reality, in touch with reality. You're not wearing so many fucking masks. So that person now becomes an adult and isn't shy of their voice. They're empowered, not disempowered. They're less traumatized, not more traumatized. They're more able to be in their power and their voice and their truth because they've had experience of repair. They haven't had an experience like in my world, when I grew up, like I would get physically belted. There was never a sorry after that. There was never a repair. That didn't slow down. It slowed down because I got older, not because it slowed down because it was not the most healthiest thing to do relationally. So this is why I think, repair, and I actually don't even think I've ever been asked that question, brother. So this is sort of really the first time I'm riffing on it in this way. And I just think, the more I speak to you with it, I'm going to pause in a second now, I think the more valuable repair actually is. And the more I'm going to speak to it a lot more.
Well, okay. Well, there's a lot here. One of which I don't want to forget this, because this was something that just happened with. I mean, it's happened a few times now. So our boy Luca, you met him, just absolute
Beautiful.
sweetheart, as are so many young kids, right? And now he's also big, dude. He's powerful. The dude, like Lauren's family's like, my family's all Sicilian, super short, 5 foot, like tiny,
Love it.
tiny, but just like Sicilian bricklayers and all that stuff. My dad laid marble and granite for most of his life until he went into the tooling business because his body was so beat up from that. But I bring that up because like Lauren's family's big, Luca's stocky, he eats more than most women. He's 3. And so he's strong, man. And so now there's moments when he's in peak, whatever it is, he doesn't get what he wants, or he's the tyrant, and he'll get physical. So like, I think it was last night, I'm still like cut up from it a bit, like, and his nails were there. He grabbed my face and was like, Papa, no. And so and I'm learning as I go, like truthfully learning as we go, right?
Man, me too, bro.
So like there's certain times where I can take, if he hits me, I'll make sure, I'll let him know, like, it's not okay to hurt Papa. I might restrain him a bit. Just, I'm not going to let myself, him come at me. But this time he sunk his nails into my lip and it was really painful. And what ends up happening is what we've been doing is we'll take him into a room upstairs, like our neutral room. I sit with him, I regulate with him. And it's funny because when I used to do this, I would talk to him right away. I'd be like, hey, Pop, hey, Bubba, you angry right now? And he, after like the 3rd time, he's like, Papa, stop talking. Papa, no talk. And I'm like, what? And so what he was teaching me was he just wanted me to regulate with him. So now when I go up, I just sit with him until I feel him regulate with me, and then we talk. But what happened is when I took him upstairs, he did it again. And I remember in that moment, like I went to level 8 and it was so quick. I grabbed him and literally picked him up, and I didn't hurt him by any means, but I put him down fast, and that aggression came out because I was physically hurt. And I like in that moment, it was like, fuck, this got to stop. But the thing that I'm still like in part hurting over is it's so small. It was so small, but I felt what I experienced was like fear from him, from Dad, and I'm like, so I sat him down, and then, we chatted and we always hug after, and we do that. But I'm just feeling, as more of these things come up, as is natural, like I'm feeling, not what could this do to him, but I just felt the innocence of him. And what I experienced was fear coming from me. And I was like, fuck, man, damn. So when you were sharing that, I was just feeling into that. And I don't know what I could have done different, because, we did all the things, but I'm just really feeling that moment, and like a bit angry, frustrated, and bummed, and maybe it was necessary, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. But that was just really just what happened. I think it was yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, my thought is I appreciate you sharing and just being honest with it. And, I could also share with you so many times where I feel like, damn, I wish I've done better, because, our children, man, are tremendous learning points and growth points for us as adults. There's this school of thought that says, that the children in our lives, our children, our sons and daughters, are reflections of us at the same age, especially if there's a consistent pattern of disruption that's taking place. I'm not insinuating that's happening here, by the way. It can be a moment-to-moment thing, and it can also be a consistent thing too, right? Like, and so they're opportunities for us to work on things, But again, like in that moment, are you going to be perfect? Are you going to be zen and just stay at a 1, Maybe not. But maybe it's okay for your boy to see you get big, but also come down and experience that contrast and that range, right? And then you take ownership of, hey, I'm sorry, I got a little too big and that hurt. And like, and maybe eventually you learn, you get to say to him, hey, I'm moving towards an 8 and I don't want to be an 8 in front of you. So I'm going to go take some space now. Like whatever the conversation is, or the evolution of that is, right? And it's not for me to say, what you did was right or wrong. I think, man, you're human and again, I don't want to excuse quote unquote poor behavior. I look at more patterns, man. Like if you're saying to me, hey, Steph, like I'm getting angry at my boy, multiple times a day, every day, and I have been for the last year and I can't control it. Well, we better have a conversation. Like when you say to me, hey, every now and then, I haven't slept and this is happening and I'll go to an 8 and I'll get upset. Like, okay, we can work on that, but that's not a thing necessarily. So I just want to give you that context too. Like I know you're a good man, you're a good human, you're a good dad, you care sincerely, you're a genuine person, you're in the work. Like the biggest thing we can do, I think, is fucking meet ourselves with a little more compassion and kindness. I'll share another story with you as well. Like, just a couple of months ago, she was on the bar doing potty, and Athena was just, she hadn't slept much that night, and she was really, really difficult, being really difficult, right? And difficult because I didn't have the capacity in those moments, not because she's a difficult kid. That's also, I'm a big part of that equation, right? Like it's not just, she's being difficult and it's her fault. No, it's like in those moments, my nervous system's not holding it, right? Like I'm doing the thing anyway. Put that aside. I wanted to, I had the thought, like I wanted to pick her up and shake her, right? And not be physically abusive or anything like that with her, but like I just wanted to pick up and say, stop being so, like what you're doing, stop what you're doing. In other words, I was relying on her codependently, right? For her to, so she can just change the thing that she's doing, then I'll be okay, right? In that moment. Now, I didn't do any of that. And actually, I stayed really regulated with her. And I was curious with her and I got down to her level and I was just with her and I said, I know, I was empathizing. I know, darling, it's really difficult right now. She had a thing with mum and like she got upset and she was just screaming and I was just really regulated with her, like genuinely really regulated, except for that little thought that I had. And she ended up putting out her arms and hugging me and calming down, like she was regulating her own body because she was regulating off me. Now, if I wasn't regulated in that moment, it just would have kept escalating. Now, but that's not the takeaway of the story. I'm going to tell you the takeaway of the story in a second. Helped her just regulate, helped her get a little calmer back in her body. We went outside, climbed some stuff. It's really good for her personality and her little body. She got in her body and she just settled. And it was like nothing happened, right? I stayed totally calm, totally regulated. That's not always how I am, but really was present with her. Really just got into her world and I didn't allow it to affect me. After that, like an hour after that, I had a session with my teacher and I shared this experience with him. And what I shared with him was I focused on this thought that I had for like 1 to 2 seconds, if that. And I was berating myself, man. I was saying, I can't believe I had this thought. What a piece of shit I am. I'm the worst parent ever. That I want to think about shaking my child or think about, grabbing them and telling them to be quiet and trying to make them stop, like I'm just a piece of shit. And my teacher says to me, he goes, isn't it interesting that out of what actually happened and the 1 to half a second thought you had, which you didn't act on, and you broke a generational pattern in that moment, all you're thinking about is the thought that you had instead of the beautiful thing that you actually did and were. And I said, yeah, that's me. I'm really hard on myself. And that's why I said to you, like the best thing that we can do is actually be kind and compassionate with ourselves, particularly as men. We just miss the mark on that, man, so much. I mean, I don't want to speak for every man, but I know I do. I know so many men in my life do as well. Really hard on themselves.
Was it just the awareness of your teacher bringing that to light? So like, what was your process of inviting in, or what has been your process of inviting in more compassion for yourself, or what has worked, or I'll pause there.
Yeah, just coming close to the truth. So sharing more, right? I'm pissed off now, or I'm really sad, or I feel like a piece of shit, or whatever it is, that like not avoiding the thing that actually is happening with me, and doing my best to make it, to embrace it with a consciousness of no problem, not bypassing. This isn't about spiritually, emotionally, relationally bypassing when I say, oh, no problem. I'm not trying to pretend it's okay. But can I meet myself with, okay, I made this choice. It wasn't the best choice. Came from fear, came from control, came from my ego. I know the places it comes from. I'm not a piece of shit. I'm a human. And can I love myself through that? But the closer I come into contact with that and admit that truth and own that truth, I experience more freedom.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. There was one thing when you were sharing earlier, I wanted to track this. When you were sharing, when you're in repair and you said, I'm taking complete ownership of what happened. But I think you said it has to be genuine ownership.
Yeah.
And I really want to also touch on the codependency part that you were sharing too. But when you're like, that you need and you want, parts of you want to repair, whether it's, let's say in your relationship, but you're having difficulty accessing genuine ownership. What do you do?
Don't access it then. Don't access it. Don't pretend. Say it. Like, I'm struggling to access within myself responsibility for this thing that I've done. I want to be stubborn. I want to keep being stubborn. I want to keep being protective. I want to keep being in control. I want to keep being in my ego. I don't want to take responsibility. That's the truth. So genuinely do that.
Okay.
And watch what happens. And watch what happens in the face of, especially if you're with someone, whether it's your coach, your therapist, your partner, the person that you're activated by, or the person that's saying, hey, I wish you didn't do that thing to me. It really hurt me, or whatever they're saying, like, do it in front of them and watch what happens. Especially if you have agreements around how you diffuse each other, how you hold each other through that. You'll get to what's the big deal? Like, let's just sit for this for a second. Like, what's the big deal? It's shame, right?
So
like,
that's the first thing I was like, that's what came up for me. I was like, shame.
Yeah.
Clear.
And we get shamed for our shame. That's the problem. We get shamed, well, no problem, but we get shamed for our shame, right? And so we avoid it like the plague. But the more in contact you come with what's really true and what you're feeling and experiencing by default, and this isn't the purpose of coming closer to this, but by default, and almost impossible not to, is guess what happens? It diffuses its power. And now we can just say, yeah, I swore at you. I'm really sorry. Yeah, I know where it came from. I'm really going to do my best to not keep doing that. And I'm giving you an example, right? Now that other person may have some boundaries and say, hey, like, you can't talk to me like that. I'm not tolerating that. That's not what I'm in here for. Well, then you have to have other conversations if you break those agreements, or if you lose control, or, how you both tolerate. Agreements are subjective, and they're very specific to that couple or to those people that are in relationship, right? So you guys get to make the rules, the guidelines, the rails, whatever you want to call it, of what that looks like.
Is that, Steph, one of the first places or the early places in a relation when things are going well and you guys are both regulated that you would suggest a couple establish? Is like, what are the agreements in this relationship specifically around conflict?
I think that's fantastic. I think if any couple, I would be revisiting this on a regular basis, monthly, quarterly, throughout the year, whatever it is. Like, you say, hey, this is how from what I know, and please feel free, because you're a mirror in my life, tell me what you see as well. But what I know about myself is that when we do conflict, this is my go-to strategy or pattern. I stonewall, or I shut down, or I get very defensive, or I get very aggressive, or whatever it is, right? Or I start picking out what you're doing, or I can't listen, and I'm just, whatever it is, that's the pattern I get in. The pattern that I see you getting in is A, B, and C. And you both share that experience with each other, not in a charged way, just in an observational way. Like, hey, I'm pretty sure it comes from A, B, and C. Like, when I experienced this when I was 7 years old and 8 years old and 9 years old, or this is the dynamic that I grew up in my family. And again, you're not excusing behavior. You're giving insight so people can actually be compassionate and go, oh, wow, like I can see your 7-year-old boy really hurt. And when you're like this now at 40 years of age, it's not really you at 40, it's your 7-year-old boy, you're time traveling. Because that's what we do. We're just big, we're adults, we're just little kids walking around in adult bodies, man. Like that's that's facts for most of us. Especially when we're put to our edge and when we're in conflict, our nervous system regresses to a time when the affliction of that was first experienced. The essence of that thing that we're experiencing now at 35 years of age or 45 years of age was first experienced. It's amplified by that, usually unresolved and unprocessed, usually. So the root of it is regressed. So you make those agreements, you say, hey, like when we both, because most trauma is complementary as well, like it bonds and blends. And so you say, well, when we're in this kind of conflict, why don't we do A, B, and C? Now, luckily for you and for me and for all of us, there are institutes and teachers and places that have been studying this for a long time. Take the Gottman Institute, for example, 40 plus years studying relationships, right? A lot of longitudinal studies there. One of the things that they suggest to do when it comes to conflict, that works very well for everybody. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here, but you can look this up in Gottman Institute, is, and again, because it is also dependent on the individual. Like, do you have a very strong avoidant attachment style or insecure, anxious attachment style, or do you are you disorganized? And I'm just using attachment styles as one example. There are so many other personality patterns, love languages, individual wounding and trauma, value sets. There's so many other factors that impact this. However, what can be generally helpful is if you are in conflict. In other words, you have an opinion, your partner has an opinion, and you're both not budging, and all that seems to be happening is escalation. Pause. Take 30, 40 minutes, go for a walk, move your body, read a magazine or a book, or even watch something on TV, if you know, like a documentary, just something that sort of like just diffuses you. Don't ruminate on the conflict. Don't journal to it even. Just have some space. That's part of your agreements. Then come back together once your nervous system is a little more regulated and you feel more resourced, and observe if you can come to that conversation from a different angle, right? That's one helpful thing that you could do. There are many other things that you can do. Knowing each other. So this is the thing, like when you know yourself really well, and you're doing inner work on yourself, you're exploring the inner sanctum of your being, you prioritize growth for yourself, for the relationship, for each other, you tend to know each other better. So you know and each other better and self better, and you know how to be. So you know what a healthier conflict resolution or conflict engagement looks like. It's not a matter of is conflict, you're not trying to avoid conflict. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. Great. It's actually good. Not a bad thing. It's how you do conflict. And so if you have agreements around that based on how you know self and each other, that's a really healthy thing. But let's just go full circle for a second back to repair. Like if you experience genuine repair as a kid, you know that conflict resolution is actually possible. You believe it, you know it, it's a fact. So you'll bring that into adulthood. You're like, I don't need to run away from this. Oh, I can actually listen to myself. Oh, I can seek to understand you. Oh, I can actually have a voice to be heard. You're not attuned to that. You're attuned to that. That's just the norm for you. So conflict's going to be easier. Another thing, a great example of why repair is so important at a young age, experiencing that as a kid.
I think that is, I mean, there's so many, obviously, like skills, but there has been, I actually think I was reading one of Connor Beaton's posts, and I think he was, don't quote me, but I think he was referencing the Gottman Institute or whatever it is, but I could be mistaken. But there was a stat on there that I won't forget. And it was like 93% of marriages that end up in divorce, like they traced it back to whatever it was, challenges around conflict. And I've really felt that to be so true. But really what's landing with what you're saying is, as kids, obviously we learn through modeling what we see, what we hear, what we feel, what we intuit. And with what you're saying, it's like it becomes as possible as anything else, maybe. As possible of like, I can learn to ride a bike. I could learn to, whatever, play by myself, and that's okay too. Yes. I can, it's like, holy shit. Like that for a moment, I just want to like take a moment. Like that is profound. If a child can really learn to understand, like, it's okay. Something's not terribly wrong. I like that right there, man. And it's been in my awareness, and this conversation is just like really putting the spotlight on even more of an inspiration around that, even more of like, fuck, like that's, if I have one big role that I really would love to continue developing myself and also impart on my son, it is very much that. Um, yeah. So
Yeah,
thank you.
people are safe. I think
People are safe.
repair is possible. Like, how many people move around the world unconsciously hypervigilant, not trusting people?
Mm,
And at the root of that, not the only thing, but at the root of that is people just always hurt me and not take accountability. Because we move in absolutes, especially when we're younger. And if we just have enough experiences of that, it's all we think we know, right? And so it's like, oh, people are just unsafe, full stop. No one's willing to repair. No one's willing to take accountability. I'm alone. It's always me or always my fault. But those unconscious beliefs drive so much of how people are in the world.
yeah. Beautiful, man. Well, one thing I'd love to make sure we touch on, because I know repair is something that you cover in your book. Can you
Yeah,
share
for sure.
for sure. So, uh, I'm curious, like what inspired the book, and I'd love to give you a few minutes to really unpack someone who's interested in getting the book, learning more, developing themselves in the discussion that we're having, and so much more. Like, what can they get from the book, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks, man. So you
Yeah,
can get the book at tunedinandturnedonbook.com, and there's a stack of bonuses, really cool bonuses that are still available. And by the way, tunedinandturnedonbook.com, you can get it through Amazon, you can get it through Barnes and Noble, you can get it through any major retailers. There's instructions there. Click the link. It's super simple, right? We just take you automatically, and then you'll get your bonuses. There's a process for that. And it's Audible as well. I've recorded the book. It's in Audible, available in Audible and
love that.
paperback. So essentially, man, yeah, the book. I mean, a lot of what we spoke to today is in the book, and I unpack it in a far more deeper way, because there's just more time and space to do so. But there are three major parts to the book, right? Understanding self, knowing how you function as an adult, is really a byproduct of what you experienced as a kid. And how do we make that whole? How do we go around a process of making that whole? This book has a stack of experiences in it, tools, embodiment practices, and so forth in every chapter. And that's a really important part of it. It helps you understand that part there. And when you do that sort of base level inner work, and you build on that, it sets you up for what the second part of the book goes into, which is really healthy relationships, healthy intimacy. And why is that important? And the book unpacks why that's important. It also shares with us how to develop really quality, healthy relationships and break free from the trauma, the restrictions, the limitations of the past, which then moves you into sort of the third part of the book, which is healthy relationships are a fast track path to God, and they are a catalyst to living a very expanded, growth oriented, mystical life. But we can never really be truly ready for relationships without doing that inner work and really connecting to the root pain that we experience as adults. And so that's sort of the journey arc of the book, just in short.
Beautiful, man. Well, I'm so excited. I know it just came out, so I'm so excited to get it. And especially this topic. I'm so happy we spent the majority of the time going on repair, for many reasons. And yeah, just thank you for the work you're doing, man. I'm so pumped that you're putting this out, that you're getting it out. And I can't wait to share it with the guys that I'm working with as well in my audience. So,
Yeah,
brother,
thank
I
you, man.
appreciate you very much.
Yeah, appreciate it. Can I say one more thing to the book as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. If
Yeah,
you got time. Yeah.
thank you. So specifically to men, right? Everything we do in our lives, from my perspective at least, is relational, man. And so when we business, the big dreams that we have, and this isn't just for men, this is for all of us as humans, the creativity we want to express, the vision that we see for ourselves as a person in the world, it all comes down to the quality of the relationship we have with ourselves and the relationship we have with others, particularly the unconscious aspects of that. And so when we can really step into tidying all that up, so we're not hypervigilant, so we're not mistrusting, so that we're not defensive and angry, so that we're not engaging in these maladaptive patterns of relating, everything in life improves. We make more money, we have better quality relationships, we love ourselves more, we have more fun and play, we get to experience the dreams that are just sort of in the ether, we live them in a material way. And we don't do it at a sense of loss or emptiness, like, oh, I've created a multi-million dollar business, yet I still feel empty. On the surface, I have an amazing wife and children and house and toys, but there's still something that doesn't feel full in me. But that's because the quality of the relationships that should be mattering to you, they're not healed, so to speak. They're fractured. And so this book really supports in that.
Hell yeah, buddy. Well, I love that, Steph, and thank you for taking the time, man, to share. And I'm looking forward to being in touch, man, and seeing the impact that this book makes. So thank you for the work you're doing and for taking time today, big guy.
Likewise, brother. Thank you.
Hell yeah. Have a great day.